Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Motor Trade Radio podcast in association with eBay Motors Group. It is Saturday the 24th of October and you're joined by myself, Philip Nothard.
And me, Curtis Hutchinson. So this is episode 387 of All the Chatter That Matters, and we're live on tape from our virtual studios in West Yorkshire and Surrey. So this is the Nothard and Hutch show.
That's
yeah. I've just made us sound like a 70s cop show, haven't I?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I'm sure other people are saying other things, but I mean, we've got a couple of bits to open up, and we've got some cracking headlines this week, and there's been a lot. I mean, what a week it's been again. I mean, we say this every week, aren't we? I mean, I think it's just becoming a norm now with the amount of headlines and activity that's happening within our sector. But what a week on webinars going on, all the lockdowns in the areas, and and a massive shout out to JA Autos who mentions us every Saturday. So thanks for that, Alan, down at JA Autos.
Yes, big shout out to them. They're actually fairly close to where I live because they're based in Sutton, Surrey, and they've been around for over 30 years. They're IMDA members, and as you say, they give us a shout out every Saturday on Twitter. So many thanks to the guys there, the team at JA Autos.
So we were just discussing before, weren't we, Curtis? I mean, it's trying to get clarity. I mean, how the dealers, and I do feel for the dealers and everybody else involved with it. There's so much going on, but this week with obviously the tier lockdowns that the government have announced for places like Manchester, South Yorkshire, and other areas, and it's taken a few hours of my time this week trying to get clarity out of associations dealing with the government as to what's been happening in Wales and what the actual fire break means for the Welsh dealers and the automotive sector there down in Wales, and you were mentioning that it's slightly different up in Scotland as well.
Yeah, I mean, as we record this today, it's been announced that Scotland's introducing a 5-tier system, and of course, there's a large number of areas across Scotland, across that central belts that are in lockdown at the moment, as well as Manchester. We've got London in tier 3 and areas of South Yorkshire in lockdown as well.
Yeah, and it's again, I mean, testament to all the associations connected with our industries. So that's the IMDA dealing with the independent dealers, the VRA with the remarketing sector, and both NAMA from an auction, the NFDA from franchise dealers, and not forgetting people like the FLA. Obviously we had Adrian Daly on recently from the FLA and the SMMT. They've all been working together to try and clarify what some of these tier structures and lockdowns mean for the areas, and what can and can't be done in terms of activity, and working with people with the UK government and working with the Welsh government to understand what that means in Wales, because Wales has gone into the more stringent fire break, and there's a lot of questions around, car dealers not opening, but does that mean they can operate a click and collect service? What that means in terms of inspects and collects, in terms of auction, end of term contracts, etc. So again, as always, and we saw this throughout the initial lockdown, a lot of work taking place from these associations in trying to understand and get clarity, which is very difficult, as you know. It's it's very difficult to get full clarity on things.
Yes, they are in an unenviable position, and our best advice would certainly be, if you're a member of the NFDA or IMDA, then get in touch with them direct to find out what sort of guidance they're issuing.
Yeah, you're right. They are pushing out updates as and when they get it, and trying to sort of support everybody in terms of full clarity. But we have got this week some big headlines hitting us, haven't we, Curtis? So lots been taken.
Yeah, we have indeed. Let me take you through this week's stories. So we've got the formal launch of the next phase of BCA's B2C Cinch online used car platform, and also what the industry thinks of this latest move. Pendragon has made up for lost ground with a strong Q3. 90% of customers say they're comfortable with showroom visits despite COVID-19. That's according to a new Whatcar survey. We have dealer demand for retail-ready used vans being particularly high at the moment on the back of the home delivery boom. We've got a high-profile independent retailer boss announcing her retirement. So there's a bit of a clue there. And finally, we've got an update on the Mini Moke story that we ran only probably about a month ago. And the good news is that it's definitely coming to the UK. So get your checkbooks out and find out who's going to be looking after Mini Moke in the UK.
Yeah, we know where you can buy one. We know where you can get your orders in.
Yeah.
I can't remember the number, but they're not bringing that many over to the UK initially, are they? So get your orders in.
56.
There you
56.
Go. There you go.
Yeah.
So the first story is kind of, we're going over to Car Dealer Mag, and then a similar story within AM Online. And as you say there, Curtis, it was the launch of the Cinch platform that has created lots of conversation across the network following its news being broke on early hours of Sunday morning in the Times.
Yes, so this is a particularly interesting one because Cinch had already launched. I guess it was a soft launch they did in the summer, but they put out a press release actually on Monday, so the Sunday Times had the scoop on that, announcing the rollout of the Cinch platform and the obviously the strong link with BCA. So within the press release, it was claiming that it will have over 4,000 used cars on the platform, which, from my understanding, some of those will be coming from BCA, and they also launched a TV campaign fronted by Rylan Clark Neal. So,
Rylan? I don't know.
Well, you know what? I had to ask the question at home. Why is he famous? What has he actually done? Because I didn't actually know his backstory, although I recognise him. He is a face, he is a name, but I had no idea why he was famous.
I've had more the comment that he's everywhere at the minute. He's Rylan and we're sick of seeing him. But anyway, that was the much of the response. But obviously, I live in a different, circle than you do, then, Curtis. But yeah.
Well, I didn't have much of a clue. But returning to the story. So the first story that we're looking at is from Car Dealer, and this is particularly interesting because it's a response from you guys at Cox Automotive, because Car Dealer James Baggett, the editor there, interviewed Martin Forbes for his response, and this was first thing Monday morning. So I urge you to go over and have a look at the interview because it's very, very timely, because it's really just as the story breaks, and it's Martin's response.
Yeah, definitely, and I think key for Martin on that, and I say it's a very, very open interview with Martin Forbes, who's the international president for Cox Automotive. So head over to Car Dealer, and he's putting his points across that Cox Automotive have got no intentions of retailing cars, and they are committed to provide the products and services and support the retailers in navigating, obviously, through the new retail and wholesale environment, and the focus from Cox Automotive and Martin heading that up is remaining in the B2B space, and that was crucial for the dealers to understand that, and that that we got no intention of going into that consumer space and going on in terms of competition with the dealer network. So I mean that in terms of what's happening there, and it is an intriguing one. And it has created a lot of conversations, and there's very, very little response out of BCA on the subject either this week.
Yeah, and let's not forget that there's an awful lot of activity in this sector at the moment, because on the podcast we've been reporting over recent months about Kazoo, and that was a digital platform. It's now gone to clicks and bricks through the acquisition of the Imperial Car supermarket chain, and we've also been reporting on the forthcoming launch of Carzam, which is from the Big Motoring World team. So a lot of activity, now that Cinch have rolled out as well. But as we mentioned, we've got two stories on this, because AM ran a story on Monday, and the headline was BCA accused of opening Pandora's box with Cinch online car retail offering. And this is really based on a story around feedback that AM have had from one car retailer who said BCA has opened Pandora's box. Many businesses in many sectors of business have considered taking on their customers in the past, and the wise ones have thought better of it. Clearly, BCA have decided that the rewards are greater than the risks in the case. So an interesting observation there, which is kind of typical, I mean, from what I've been hearing from other dealers this week.
Yeah, no, and it's right. And I think, and Martin Forbes again is quoted in there that, he talks about obviously the disposal of the motors.co.uk brand to eBay, as we know. We're the sponsor of the podcast, and the recent disposal of Cars Guide and Auto Trader brands in Australia to eBay Gumtree. So again, kind of reiterating the fact that the Cox Automotive business and at the helm of Martin Forbes there has no intention of being in that consumer space, and they're there again to work with the leasing, contract, hire and dealer sectors in that wholesale and solutions space as well. So I think there's going to be a little bit more on this. This isn't I think there's a lot more to come on this one, but I think at the minute BCA aren't commenting either. There's no comments in response to any media from BCA.
No, and as you say, it's definitely one to watch. So we'll update you as and when on that one. So moving on to the next story, and staying with AM Online, the headline is Pendragon almost entirely offsets H1 losses in critical Q3. So this is welcome news from Pendragon, and again we've been following Pendragon closely this year as they restructure the business, and Q3 has seen an incredible bounce back, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Bill is obviously putting his strategic plans in place. He announced recently that we sort of alluded to the investors planners, to where he talked about his growth plans, etc. But really, I mean, the city's reacting to it. The city are, if you look at the share prices and those that have seen and watched Pendragon over the many years from the extremely low points, but their share prices have reacted very positively. I mean, as we're recording this today, the share prices are in excess of 15 pence, and to be fair, when you look back to March, they were as low as 7. So significant reaction there from the city in terms of what Bill is instigating for the future of Pendragon. And as you say, those results are phenomenal, aren't they? In terms of where
they are, some big figures here. So underlying profit before tax for Q3 was 27.3 million, an increase of 24.3 million pounds. But put that another way, that's a 810% increase on Q3 of 2019, and also on a like-for-like basis, the restructured group saw revenues down 1.2% as gross profits actually rose 9.8%, and operating costs and interest declined by 9.3%. And let's also not forget that the Q3s follow recent H1 interims indicating a £31 million underlying loss before tax. So this is really welcome news, and this is the sort of bounce that Pendragon needed, and they have delivered it.
Yeah, again, they are targeting that PBT of 85 million by 2025. So again, he's got a clear plan of how he's going to head towards that. He's got his pillars of focus as well in terms of what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And it looks like they've got off to a flying start on terms of that strategic plan. So one that we'll be keeping a close eye on the podcast.
You're listening to All the Chatter That Matters on the Motor Trade Radio podcast, brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group, the only weekly podcast serving the car retailing sector, and available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favourite podcasts.
And staying with AM Online, and the header this week is that 9 out of 10 car buyers comfortable with showroom visits despite COVID-19. Now, this is insight coming from both the NFDA and Whatcar, and it kind of aligns with some insight that we'd covered once before on the podcast. And all right, it might not seem that way this week with what we just said right at the start of the show around what's happening across Wales and Scotland, Ireland, and generally across the UK with the tier lockdowns. But it is saying that the car buyers are still comfortable with visiting showrooms.
Yes, and as you say, it does follow on from some research that we reported on probably about a month or so ago from eBay Motors Group. But this particular study from Whatcar and NFDA, the sample size is just over 8,000, and 89% of respondents said they were comfortable visiting retailers despite COVID-19, and also 91% trusted car dealerships to be run in a COVID-safe way. Now, I've actually been into two different dealerships certainly over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I've been really impressed by the way that they've tackled social distancing, putting screens in place, making sure you're wearing a mask, and I felt very comfortable in that environment.
No, you're right. I mean, I haven't visited any showrooms. I've not really been anywhere, to be fair with you, Curtis. But yeah,
well, you don't get out much.
I don't
get
out much lately. No, I don't. No, I need to get me vitamin D and get out there a little bit. But I am missing it. I am seriously missing it. But you're right. I think there's been a lot of investment, a lot of planning taking place from the car dealers. They are taking this extremely seriously. In terms of that social distancing, the procedures that are in place when the consumers do visit the showrooms, and as are many retail environments, and again, even through these fire break lockdowns that are being instigated and tiered lockdowns, I think that the retailers, the car dealers have truly demonstrated, and we've seen that with some of the results that we've talked about post the lockdown, the initial lockdown, and the trading results since, that they are taking it extremely seriously and looking after their customers and their colleagues throughout this. So again, testament that the consumers still want to have that interaction. They will still want to go and visit the showroom and deal with the car showrooms.
Yeah, and something else I spotted in this story, that 10% of drivers admit that they've fallen behind with their vehicle servicing and maintenance schedule due to COVID-19. So clearly there's an opportunity there for dealers to go out and get that work. It needs doing. It's overdue now. So, and they will know who these customers are.
And particularly as we're now approaching those darker nights and the winter period, I mean, it's key time now for consumers to have their cars up to date, serviced, and safety checked, ready for the winter period. So hopefully that'll stimulate some more activity in the after sales sector.
Yeah, and our next headline comes from Motor Trader, and it's dealer demand for retail-ready used vans remains high in home delivery boom. So this is a report on some findings from Odessa UK, the online remarketing company, and they're seeing high demand for vans of all sizes, from car derived up to panel vans, preferably in good condition, for buyers in the home delivery sector, and they've noticed this over recent months, and this seems to be echoed. I've seen reports of this elsewhere in the industry. We know, and indeed we've reported on this on the podcast, that there is high demand out there for good quality used vans, and especially with some of the supply issues we're seeing in the new van market, and they are being snapped up. And certainly my understanding is that prices have been very firm. They've remained firm on used vans.
No, I'd echo that, and as you say, I mean, through Cox Automotive and Mannheim, we are still seeing that strength. We're still seeing that performance through conversions and performance of values through that LCV sector, and those. It's interesting because those dynamics that are taking place through the LCV sector, they are there to stay. This home delivery, that demand from a
Yeah.
consumer, that home delivery, and the demand from those businesses needing those vehicles look like it's set to stay, and the demand is not easing, whether that is Euro 5 or Euro 6 products. The performance is extremely strong, and we expect that to continue. There's no current signs of any easing through that LCV sector. The supply isn't coming in excessively to drop the value. So, we'll see that continue. And it's slightly different, and we may need to get Devon back on from Kappa HPI shortly as well, in terms of the signs of easing. And the reports are that the car market is slightly different. There is signs of easing there in the car market. We are starting to see a bit of demand drop as uncertainty in the final quarter starts to set in, a little bit of sort of hold back of purchasing taking place in the sort of the final weeks of October, and value starting to ease. So again, the signs are that we'll see a drop in values of cars going into November. And like I say, hopefully we'll get Devon Martin back on from Kappa HPI at some point, as soon as in November, just to give you sort of an update and an overview of what's happening with value.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And a final observation on this story, that there's a comment from Jonathan Holland, the MD of ADESA UK, who says a growing number of dealers, some of whom would normally only source cars, are coming onto the platform to buy retail ready light commercials for customers requiring. And so this does seem to be a new trend here. Car dealers who wouldn't normally stock vans are being asked specifically for vans. So definitely one to watch there.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to the next story, and you alluded to it quite perfectly at the start of the show, Curtis, but
yes,
and Car Dealer have covered it, and I have actually watched the video, and it's our good old friend Ling Valentine, who has announced that she's going to retire from her business to travel the world, and it's by bike. And I mean, a fantastic story, and I've known Ling, I know Ling personally, and I've followed her story all the way through from 2007, when she first debuted, if that's the right way of putting it, on Dragon's Den, when she turned down
yes,
50,000
yeah,
investment.
You're right. Yeah, she turned them down, which doesn't happen often. But as you get to sort of know and understand Ling, that makes perfect sense.
It does, and she's a clever lady. I mean,
Yeah.
as you said right at the start of the show there, Curtis. I mean, she's driven that business. She is an industry icon. She is well known, good and bad. She doesn't hold back from her opinion.
No,
That's Ling.
no.
And she has done a to screen YouTube video, and I think it's about 8 or 9 minutes long, and she goes into why she's retiring, what she's going to do. She's obviously taking her bike to go and travel the world. I think from memory, that her plans is to eventually go back to China to visit her parents when she can go back into visiting China, because we know there's a bit of a lockdown in terms of that at the minute. But she does plan to go back there on her bike, and she's
But
handing over the van.
yeah. That is a push bike, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Because it's behind her. It's
yeah,
behind her on the video. So it is a push bike, albeit possibly a powered one, because it looks as though it's a fairly upmarket bike. But yeah, no, she is a flamboyant character. I mean, great fun following her on Twitter. And yeah, one of my favourite stories, when I was at Motor Trader, we ran this story, was when she bought a mobile missile launcher, which was ex-army. I don't know which army, but she bought this, and she put it outside of her site, and it acted as this sort of mobile billboard for the business, because the missile was actually painted white, had the company logo on it with a picture of her, which was unmissable. You know, if you were passing by, you knew exactly what the business was.
bright yellow as well. It was it. You know, I say I followed her career. Conversation I've spoken to her numerous times, and she kindly invited me to go to some conferences with her at one point as well in Korea and a few other places, and I couldn't go, politely turned her down. But fantastic individual, and as you said, you know, an icon in the industry, and let's not forget, you know, a female leader of a very successful business.
Yes, and there's there aren't many of those, sadly. So yeah, we do wish Ling well, and I for one will certainly be following her on Twitter to see how her round the world trip progresses.
Definitely. And if you don't know Ling and you've never really followed her, have a look at the video, and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. She's unique. She is handing over the business to Guy, Lily, and David. So she's passing the business on, and she does reiterate that the business will continue as it is today, even with her not at the helm, and she wishes them all the best, and as we do as well. So fantastic news. And segueing slightly, and we did, you know, we kind of introduced this on the podcast, and
Yes, we
the
teed
ant
this up
finally.
nicely, didn't we?
We did, yeah, we did, and we're covering the story in AM Online, and I know these guys very well at Hendy Group there, and it's basically Hendy Group has been named as the sole UK franchise for the relaunched Moke brand. So as we said, you better get in there quick, because the volumes are limited, and there's great comments there from Paul Hendy, and I've been following some of the social stuff from Mark Busby as well from Hendy Group. So they have been appointed the UK retailer for the Moke franchise.
Yeah, so this is the new generation Moke, which I think from our last report is possibly designed in the UK, but it's definitely built in France. And there's only 56 units coming to the UK in right-hand drive, and they will be sold. Hendy Group is the sole distributor for the UK, and the operation will be based in Poole in Dorset, where Hendy has its specialist sports car division. But I mean, it's also an ideal part of the country, because Poole, the southwest, beaches, mini Moke, they kind of go together. But yeah, restricted to 56 units, and prices are thought to be in the region of around £20,000.
Yeah, and they've reimagined the Moke to say larger than the original car, and it's available in 14 colours, together with the chrome detailing, the Union Jack badge, and a numbered plaque. So I suggest that if you are wanting one, then you probably get in touch with Hendy Group as soon as possible, because you may have to wait behind Paul Hendy and Mark Busby for their summer demos. I can imagine it'll be on, but so there might only be 54 now, so you maybe need to get in there extremely quick. But you know, very great news for these guys down there. So you know, good luck to them on that one.
Yeah, definitely, and you know, do come on, Paul or Mark, and tell us all about the business, because there was a lot of interest in this on social media. I shared the story on LinkedIn, and plenty of comments and likes and shares there.
Definitely. So that's it for this week. So we'll try and keep you up to date on a regular basis. There, you know, Paul or Mark, open door, please. There's been a lot going on with Hendy's generally recently, and it would be great to have one of you guys on to share some of your thoughts, and obviously around the Moke as well. We'll try and keep you abreast of some of the things that have been happening in the future in terms of the lockdowns, etc., and where we can say. And I said right at the start, head over to the association websites, and they're trying to share all the news as it comes in, and work hard for the industry just to make sure that everybody's up to date as these sort of clarifications start to come out from the governments as well. And we'll try and get Darren on at some point as well to talk about the used car value market and what's happening there as we enter sort of November, December. So lots happening at the minute, isn't there, Curtis?
There certainly is, but unfortunately, that's all for this week. So you've been listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group. Join Philip and I again next weekend for all the chatter that matters. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.